But first, I wanted to bring in Professor Cass Sunstein. He's the Robert Walmsley University professor at Harvard from 2009 to 2012. He was the administrator of the White House Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs. He's the founder and director of the program on behavioral economics and public policy at the Harvard Law School, the author of numerous books, including his latest, Impeachment, A Citizen's Guide. And Professor, it's been a while since you've been on the program. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
It's great having you with us. There is a slight delay in the telephone, just to give you a heads up on that, because I'm remote and it's having to bounce all over the place. And by the way, I should add your Twitter handle is Cass Sunstein, CassSunstein. Your thoughts on impeachment? You've written this book, Impeachment, A Citizen's Guide. Lay it out for us. Lay out the argument.
Well, the basic argument is that we couldn't have had the Constitution without the impeachment provision, that the Constitution was chosen against the background of the American Revolution, which was an attack on monarchy, actually a literal attack on monarchy. And the idea of impeachment was we would have a powerful executive, as we ended up having, but only on condition that we, the people, would have not only the 4-year election cycle, but also an opportunity to say, you know, there's been something that's so egregious that the president can't be president anymore. And this was essential to the survivors of the American Revolutionary experience to thinking that we weren't betraying the principles for which people had lost their lives.
You know, Hamilton also wrote in one of the Federalist Papers that the Electoral College would prevent a person of low character from becoming president. Is this discussion? Yeah. How? I mean, you know, we've had two presidents where there's been an attempt to impeach them. You've got Andrew Johnson back in the 1860s, and and of course Bill Clinton. What lessons do you take from those efforts? And Richard Nixon, obviously, in 73, I guess it was.
Yeah, I actually think the strongest lessons come from the founding period, and though I'll talk a little bit about Johnson, Clinton, and Nixon. The really important thing in the founding period is that impeachment is for gross abuses of presidential authority. That's the basic target. So if you have something that involved something that wasn't a crime, or did I lose you for a sec there? If you have something that was an egregious violation of the president's duty, then you can impeach him. So a terrible crime, of course, would be impeachable. Even if we don't have a crime, it would be impeachable if it's an egregious misuse of authority. So I think that's the basic.
Yeah. Now my understanding actually is, if I may interrupt just a second, but just to stay on that topic for a moment. I think it was Lawrence Tribe on this program who said that the phrase high crimes, which to our ears sounds like, a serious felony, like shooting somebody on Fifth Avenue or raping somebody on Fifth Avenue. But in fact, in the language of 1787, what high crimes meant were crimes against essentially democracy, or crimes against the republic, things that might not be violations of a criminal code, things that you couldn't necessarily go to jail for, but were such egregious abuse of office, such egregious crimes. Again, the word has a slightly different meaning. That would justify impeachment, and you wouldn't have to prove in an impeachment hearing that an actual crime in the modern sense was what happened. Is that also your understanding of it, Professor Cass Sunstein?
Completely. That emerges unambiguously from the founding period. So if the president goes on vacation for 9 months and doesn't do his job, that's an impeachable offense. That's a misdemeanor, meaning a bad action within the meaning of the Constitution. If the president suppresses civil rights and civil liberties, runs roughshod over the Bill of Rights, that would clearly be impeachable, even though it's not a crime. James Madison was clear that an abuse of the pardon power would be a criminal offense, and it was clear even at the convention that if you obtain the presidency through illegitimate means, for example, by doing something untoward, let's say, with the Electoral College, that would be an impeachable offense, and it wouldn't matter whether it was technically a crime. So let's...
Now, Jimmy Carter has said that forgive my interrupting again, but this is a fascinating line of inquiry. Jimmy Carter yesterday or the day before, it was reported this morning, at a forum at the Carter Center, said that it is his opinion that Donald Trump is an illegitimate president, that, you know, this little tiny margin in Ohio, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania would not have happened had the Russians not poured all this money and effort into social media and perhaps other ways of messing with our election. And we know now Bill Barr has blocked 7 of the investigations that Robert Mueller started. We have yet to find out what they were, but you know, is it possible that simply his being elected with the help of foreign, and now there's also evidence that Saudi Arabia was messing in the elections, the UAE and individuals in Israel as well. Is it possible that that is impeachable?
No. So if the president was elected as a result of foreign help, that is definitely not impeachable because, as far as we've discussed so far, he was not coordinating or conspiring with the foreign government to get that help. So we need to have an offense, a grave offense, by the president himself, and the Mueller report is very clear that there was no criminal offense between the Trump campaign and Russia. So that would not be a legitimate basis for impeachment.
Okay, so we have about a minute and a half to finish up your thoughts on the other impeachment efforts.
Okay, so I think the thing to focus on is, has there been an egregious misuse of presidential authority? And this is something we have to ask through a veil of neutrality, meaning we can't think we love President Trump, so of course he shouldn't be impeached, or we despise President Trump, so of course he should be impeached. Those have to be put to one side. This is a very grave matter we're discussing. The second volume of the Mueller report does come very close to finding obstruction of justice with respect to the Russian investigation, and there's no reason that Congress has to agree with the Mueller report, but the fact-finding is sufficiently concerning, and I'm using a very soft word there, sufficiently concerning, that we're very much in the ballpark of legitimating an impeachment inquiry with the kind of solemnness that our commitment to self-government requires.
Yeah. So you think that he has already committed impeachable offenses, essentially?
Definitely not. So I've been very focused on the Constitution and the American Revolution, and not on this particular president. I think that would be the right way to go for someone to work for President Obama, and I'm definitely not saying he's committed impeachable offenses. But the Mueller report, the second volume in particular, suggests some very grave actions which would legitimate an inquiry into the question, and if the inquiry were started with clarity that he did or didn't commit impeachable offenses, then it wouldn't be an inquiry.